Alright guys, welcome back to my channel, Patches, Guns, and Knives. Today I'm going to do a video on putting skiff bearings in my 0450 zero tolerance. It's a Sinkovich design and it was custom anodized by USA Made Blade. But he does an awesome job doing these. He also did my Curtis. So the knife is smooth, it's good on the bearings that it is, but I prefer skiffs. It, to me, helps strengthen the pivot. It just makes me feel better about it. So we'll go ahead and start here. I start out by removing the pivot. And sometimes you might need another driver with a T8. Because ZT pivots do spin. No need to take the pocket clip off. I'm not even going to remove the other pivot here. We only need to remove one side. Get the blade up one scale off and then the blade up. This is a T6 for the barrel screws. There are no screws on either side, single screw barrels. And just be a little careful because that frame lock can make that blade pop on you. So here we are opening it up. You can see it's got steel bearings on a brass cage. And we are going to be using rocket glide rings, which are ceramic. Okay, you can see that there. So when I take my knife apart here, actually I said I'm not going to take the other scale off, but it comes off when it comes apart, doesn't it? Yeah. I always clean my knives of anything that could be on them, any kind of oils or debris. And it might be on the blade. I get down in the bearing race. And a good thing to use for this also are these knife pivot lube knife care swabs. I have the pack right here. I purchased the gift box from KPL. Came with my dry film, heavy lube, original lube, and light lube. And it's probably going to last me a lifetime. There's some debate going around about the dry film. Some guys saying you don't need to put it on a regular knife, that it's just for an OTF or an automatic or yeah, but I've found that if I put it on the scale side, the bearing race, right in here, I feel that my blades glides a little better. And then on this side of the knife, we'll go ahead and put it right in the bearing race right here inside the scale. And I have also been putting it on the blade bearing track. If it's machined out, which you can see the detent ball, the detent track is what I meant. You see where the detent ball is wearing a track? That's not a bad thing. That actually tells me where I need to put my dry film. It's not going to protect it from wearing, but it'll help that detent ball glide a bit better on that blade. So I'll also mention that I put KPL heavy on my detent ball, which is located on the lock side of the scale, right here inside the steel insert. Okay, I put a little bit of heavy in there. And then I take a very fine sandpaper. It's 3 3000 grit sandpaper. And I just rub it on a detent ball, just very lightly. I put no pressure on it. And that's just to get that ball to spin a little bit to work that KPL heavy in there. All right, so we can go ahead and start putting our knife back together here. So I'm putting the pivot in, and we can lay it down on the lock side, get our skip bearings out. These little bags are great because they're marked very clearly. This is a 3/16 by 1/16 inch pivot bearing. You can find the bearing guide on Google if you just Google Skiff bearing compatibility list. And they have a pretty good list on there of several knives that the bearings are compatible with. I like to have a few on hand. If I want to change one out, I'll take the knife, I'll take it apart, take my pivot, and I'll just put one on at a time until I figure out the size. I thought I had ordered the Skiff's bearing card. It's a small titanium card that will measure your pivot and your bearings. But I guess I might have changed my cart before I checked out. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put, that is the blade stop. Put it there. All right, I'm going to take my dry film. So I put a little bit right there, and then I take my swab, and I'll rub it real quick around that race. And this stuff dries really fast, and you'll see it. It's almost like putting alcohol on there. I know it won't come out in the video, but it can come out really quick, so be very careful. Like I said, I just put a small little dab on there, and then I run it around, and it's dry. That's all it takes. I mean, and like I said, this is my preference. There's no guide. No one had ever said to do this. I got the film. I wasn't real sure what it was for. I looked it up, and yeah, they were saying about OTFs and automatics and maybe even some balisongs. But I'm using it, and I like it. Okay. All right, and we'll also put a little bit on that detent race, like I said. Let me get my swab because this will dry faster than I can reach for it. So a little dab and a swipe. And it's dry. All right, so put that over there. And I'm going to go ahead and do my detent ball as well. So again, I use KPL heavy on my detent bearing. So a little tiny drop. I'm always careful because the heavy doesn't come out as fast as the other ones, but you don't want to get too much. I'll show you. Hopefully you can see it. See how it's just red? That's a very thin coating over that detent ball. So I'll take my very fine sandpaper here. No pressure at all, none. I just put the paper on the ball just to roll the ball a little bit. I don't want to put my finger on it because it's going to probably take off most of the lube. You can see I've worked it in. It's not as red anymore. And you also want to make sure you don't get any of that on your lock face. You get any kind of lube on your lock face, whether it be the dry film or a lube or anything, you want to clean that off because it will cause lock stick. All right, now Put one of our bearings over the pivot here. And we'll take our KPL original and put a little dot on our ball there and a little dot on our ball over here. And then give it a little twirl or spin so it works into the other bearings. You can see it was sitting on top, and now some of it's in the Q-tip because you really don't need a lot. It's very, very little that you need on these bearings. All right. I'll go ahead and take our blade, set it right here. I put it in on an angle, and that is so that I can push down the lock bar with the blade as I put the knife back together. See, as you can see, the blade is holding it down. You can see the lock bar is almost pushed in all the way. Just helps hold the knife together better when you're putting it, closing it up. Get my barrel spacer back in here. Remember, there's no screw on the opposite side here, so when you're putting it back together, there's a chance the barrel might come out. You just got to be careful when you're pressing it back together. Go ahead and put our other bearing over that pivot right there. Again, KPL original. Little drop there, little drop right there. Again, take our swab. I'm going to spin that bearing to work that lube into the other balls. And that's all it takes. We'll take our show scale, set it back over top of the knife, and go easy. That way, hopefully everything can hold together. Always pick it up a little bit. I want to make sure my lock bar is still in there and my barrel spacers are still in place. I could set it back down, keep pressure on the pivot. And I just put one of those screws in the back here and get it started. Now you don't ever want to tighten down your hardware at first go. Just put it in there just enough to hold in, because you want to make sure your blade is centered and it's not rubbing on that lock bar as it's closing. This knife is being very good to me, staying together real nice. Again, with a knife like this that's been anodized, you want to be careful with not to scratch it. I'm trying to be as careful as I can with my tools. You can scratch it anodizing, it'll expose the titanium and you won't be happy. It'll be a bad day. So seeing that my pivot's not, I didn't tighten it all the way. My barrel spacers, they're not tight, they're just snug. I go ahead and I close the knife. Now look, you can see that the lock bar is pushing the blade over against the scale. So what we're gonna do to align it, I'm gonna snug one of the barrel spacers, and I'm gonna start snugging up my pivot. I remember both of the pivots spin. So I have another bit here. I'll drop back into my other County-Com nut driver here, my TPSK. We'll hold on either side. It doesn't take a whole lot. I mean, you really don't want your pivot tight. Like, now, I don't know if you guys just saw that on film, but my blade just centered itself. And that's another reason I like skiffs. I've never had a problem centering a blade since I started using Skiff bearings. They're that, I can't praise them enough. They're that good. Yeah, it's a 6 because I want to tighten up my other brow spacer. There, snug it down. And again, I don't use any Loctite because I do a lot of maintenance on my knives already. So it doesn't, none of my hardware is gonna become loose and fall out because I maintain them really well. I'm always taking them apart, cleaning them up, re-oiling them. If I think I'm gonna put the knife away for a little while, I'll even go ahead and put some oil on my blade for storage, because I do live in a humid climate and I do need to worry about corrosion or rust, or whatever you want to call it. Corrosion, it's the same. Rust is corrosion, any kind of metal fatigue. But here we go, it's done. The skip bearings are installed. The blade is centered perfectly. Just open it, you get in, yeah, and slides open real nice, and that detent ball pops right in. I have no blade rub on that lock bar, no blade rub on the other scale. It fires real nice. They do drop shut. There's the detent just fell in right there. So pop it past that quarter detent. They drop shut, but I mean, I'll do it, but it doesn't matter to me whether it does or not, because I like to be in control of my blade. So I'd rather close it and feed the blade in. It's just my preference. Because sometimes when I try to trap shut, I like to bite myself with the blades. So there we go. It's all done, and you can again find that compatibility list of the skiffs on Google, or I believe he even has a link at Skiff Blade Works, I believe is the website. These drivers are from CountyCom. They're not in stock right now. They're sold out, but they do have other types of nut driver or bit drivers that work just as well. And your knife pivot lube you can find at knifepivotlube.com. You can get your micro swabs, your lubes. Original is your good all around. If you're only going to get one KPL lube, original is the one to get, because it can work all around on all your knives. All right, so that's it. Again, thank you for watching my video. That's how to install skip bearings in a knife. This is my ZT0450. That has the Toxic Anomascus, done by Whitty at USA Made Blade. Thank you guys, we'll see you again. This is not a sponsored or paid video. This is just products that I recommend that because I use them and they work for me.